My name's Rachel. I'm 36, single, and I head the VIP client division at a global trading firm. Sounds glamorous, right? Island. I handle the kind of clients who drop six figures like it's nothing. And they pay me handsomely for making their lives smooth. But trust me, I didn't land here by accident. I clawed my way up. Bachelor's, MBA, endless late nights, 60-hour weeks, years of grinding through mergers, acquisitions, and last-minute client crises. Now, I've got a beautiful 2,800 square foot home in a quiet neighborhood just outside Austin, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz E-Class in my garage, and a 401k balance that makes most people blink twice. But to my parents? None of that matters. Not really. Every time I drive down to visit them, it's the same broken record. Rachel, when are you going to settle down? Rachel, you're not getting any younger. Don't you want a family, sweetheart? I could recite it in my sleep. It's like my accomplishments mean nothing unless I have a ring on my finger and a couple of kids in the back seat. And of course, they love comparing me to my older brother, Jason. He's 38, married his college sweetheart Brittany, and they've got a pack of kids. Ethan's 15, Logan is 13, Ava's 9, and little Mia just turned 6. My parents light up like it's Christmas morning every time Jason walks through the door with his family. And Brittany? Don't get me started on her. She's got that patronizing, Stepford wife smile that makes my skin crawl. You know the type. She tilts her head just so and says things like, Rachel, I know this great guy, my cousin, he's single and has a great job. Want me to introduce you? I always smile back and say, that's sweet of you, but I'm really focused on work right now. What I want to say is, stay in your lane, but I was raised with manners. The irony is, while they sit there judging every inch of my life, they have no problem taking my money. It started 3 years ago. Dad called one night, sounding strained. Rachel, honey, we're behind on the mortgage. Your mom's been sick, and I had to take some time off. Of course, I said yes. They're my parents. I started covering the mortgage. Every single month. For 3 straight years. And it didn't stop there. The electric bill. The gas bill, the water, the internet. And not just regular internet, no. Dad complained it was slow, so I upgraded them to the top-tier fiber optic package with all the bells and whistles. Then Mom mentioned seeing some fancy smart home segment on HGTV. It would be so lovely, she said, if I could just tell the microwave to reheat my coffee. So what did I do? I bought them everything. A smart refrigerator with a touchscreen. A dishwasher that syncs to Alexa. A microwave that literally takes voice commands. A washer and dryer set that texts them when the cycle's done. I even got them installed with a full home automation system. The whole house practically breathes on its own. Mom loves showing it off to her friends. Watch this, she beams. Microwave, reheat my coffee. And when it beeps? They all ooh like she just invented time travel. What they don't say is who paid for it all. Spoiler alert, it wasn't Jason. Mr. Whitaker. Of course. The family lawyer who drafted their original will back when I was still drowning in student loans and living off black coffee and ramen. Mom looked far too pleased with herself as she laid the manila folder flat on the table like it was some kind of prize. We decided it was time to update our will, she said, smoothing the papers like she was presenting some grand gift. Dad cleared his throat, added, just wanted to get everything in order. For the future. I glanced over at Jason and Brittany. They were sitting upright now, stiff, too rehearsed. Brittany's smile had that strained edge, and Jason wouldn't meet my eyes. The air in the room changed tight, heavy. I knew something was coming, but I couldn't have guessed how low they'd go. Mom slid a printed copy of the will out of the folder, tapped the top page like a game show host delivering the final answer. We've decided that when we pass, everything we own this house, our savings, everything will go to Jason and the kids. I stared at her, frozen. She didn't even blink. Not a word about me. Not a dime. Not a family heirloom. Nothing. I waited, thinking maybe this was just the setup to something else. A pause before the, but of course, Rachel, you'll get. Nope. We just think it makes sense, Mom continued, smiling like she hadn't just slapped me across the face. Jason has 4 children, they'll need help with college, weddings, getting started in life. Dad chimed in, and you're doing well, Rachel. You've got a good career, your own home, plenty of savings, you don't really need anything from us. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. It felt like my throat had sealed itself shut. Finally, I managed, wait. You're leaving everything to Jason? After I paid your mortgage for 3 years? Mom's face stayed neutral, like she was explaining why we were having chicken instead of beef. You've always been independent, sweetie. You don't need help, Jason and Brittany, they're struggling. Brittany jumped in, like she'd been dying to say something. We're just trying to survive, Rachel. 4 kids, 1 income, it's not easy. And you're doing great. It's just logical. Logical? I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Jason finally looked up. You've always had the good job, the big salary, we just want to make sure the kids are taken care of. The audacity. I looked around that table, my family, the same people who'd leaned on me financially for years, who never once said a proper thank you. Who treated me like some kind of bank with legs, and now they were cutting me out of the will because I was too successful? I'm sorry, I said, standing up. My voice was shaking, but not from sadness, rage. Are you telling me that after everything I've done for this family, I'm not even worth a line in your will? Dad leaned back, arms crossed. Don't be dramatic, Rachel. Brittany added, maybe talk to someone about this. That level of anger. It's not healthy. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind of dry, bitter sound that bubbles up when you realize just how far gone something really island. I grabbed my purse. Well, I said, stepping away from the table, since I'm not part of the future, I guess I'll stop being part of the present. Mom reached out. Rachel, wait. But I didn't. I walked out that door and left the apple pie and pot roast behind. And for the first time in years, I finally saw things clearly. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource. An asset. An ATM. Not anymore. Not ever again. The room went dead silent after Brittany said it, like my fury was just some hormonal overreaction. Like I hadn't just been blindsided by the people I'd sacrificed so much for. I stared at her, trying to hold back the fire crawling up my throat. You think I need a therapist because I'm angry that my own parents just wrote me out of their lives? She gave that tight little smile again, the one that always makes me want to throw something. I just mean, this level of emotion probably isn't healthy. I looked at Jason. His eyes were fixed on his plate like it might offer an escape route. My father busied himself with a sip of iced tea. Mom folded the manila folder closed, like this whole conversation was just a minor inconvenience. You're all sitting here, I said, slowly, talking about what I don't need when for 3 years I've paid your mortgage, your bills, your car insurance, I bought the appliances you use every single day. I covered your kids' camps, piano lessons, soccer tournaments. And now I'm being told that because I'm successful, I don't deserve a cent? Jason finally spoke. It's not like that, Rachel. Oh, it's exactly like that. I stood up, hands trembling. Do you even hear yourselves? I sacrificed so you could stay afloat. And now you've decided I don't matter because you think I can take care of myself. Mom had the nerve to say it again, like it was some family motto. Rachel, family helps each other. You're in a position to help, so you do. No, I snapped. That's not help. That's exploitation dressed up as obligation. And I fell for it year after year, thinking one day maybe you'd say thank you. Maybe you'd treat me like more than your personal safety net. Brittany raised her eyebrows like I was the villain. You know, Rachel, this bitterness isn't attractive. You've got a good life. Why ruin it over something like this? I turned toward her, heat in my voice. Bitterness? You think this is about money? Number. This is about respect. It's about not being used. It's about realizing I was only ever valuable to this family when I was writing the checks. Dad sighed, as if he were the one exhausted by my outburst. We just want to make sure Jason's kids are taken care of. I laughed sharp and humorless. Yeah, I bet you do. You've got 4 grandkids who light up your world. Meanwhile, I walk in and get interrogated about my love life like it's some kind of moral failing. Mom finally lost the gentle tone. You're making this all about you. It is about me, I yelled, finally done shrinking myself. You waited until the house was paid off, until the bills were covered, and then you handed me a manila folder like I was your accountant, not your daughter. No one said a word. Not Jason. Not Brittany. Not even the parents I'd just set free from $180,000 worth of mortgage debt. I looked down the table, at the pot roast now going cold, the mashed potatoes stiffening around the edges of the serving bowl, and I felt at that shift. That exact moment, you realize the scales have finally tipped. You know what? I said, grabbing my purse. Congratulations on your practical decision. Just remember, you're not the only ones who can make those. And with that, I walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't take the pie. And I sure as hell didn't look back. Because that night? That was the end of me being their ATM. And the beginning of something I should have started a long time ago, living only for me. I could practically hear the rep typing away, cheerful and oblivious to the personal storm raging behind my calm voice. Yes, ma'am. That's the Camry under Jason Thompson's name, but financed through you, correct? Correct, I replied. And how can I help you today? I'd like to return the car, repossess it. I won't be making another payment. The line went silent for a second. Then, ma'am, are you sure? There are procedures and penalties. I don't care, I cut in. Schedule the pickup. And just like that, the leash snapped. The weight I'd carried for 3 years, the quiet resentment, the guilt, the emotional blackmail hidden beneath words like family, it all started peeling off like old wallpaper. I spent the rest of that afternoon glued to my laptop. I canceled every auto payment linked to that house on Maple Street. The monthly gas and electric bills. The extra car insurance I'd foolishly added them to. I even called the credit union and removed myself as the cosigner on Jason's emergency loan from last year. That one had slipped his mind when he begged for help after Brittany's hours got cut at work. No more. By the time I was done, I had a full glass of Cabernet in hand and the most peace I'd felt in years. That night, I slept like a baby. The next morning? My phone started buzzing at 8:02 a.m. sharp. First it was Mom, then Dad. Then Jason. I let each call go to voicemail. I didn't even read the texts when they came pouring in until one from Brittany lit up my screen. This is childish, your parents are elderly, you're punishing them over something you misinterpreted. Oh, I interpreted everything just fine, sweetheart. By lunchtime, the panic had reached full throttle. Rachel, the Wi-Fi's gone, I can't even turn on the oven. The fridge is dark, the dishwasher won't start. Jason's car was towed. Did you do this? Yes, I did. And I owed no one an apology. By Thursday, I had 17 missed calls, 3 guilt-tripping voicemails from Dad, and 1 truly pitiful message from Jason. We didn't mean to hurt you, but I need the car to get to work. Please, can we just talk? No, Jason. We cannot. Because when you were sitting at that table, watching our parents erase me from their legacy like I was nothing more than a generous ghost, you didn't flinch. You didn't speak up. You nodded along, because it benefited you. So, no. We don't need to talk. They'd wanted to pretend I didn't matter. Now, they were getting a taste of what that actually looks like. By Friday night, they showed up at my door. All 4 of them. I peeked through the peephole, saw Brittany pacing with her arms crossed, Jason looking like someone had stolen his lunch, and my parents, well, they looked like they'd aged 5 years and 5 days. I opened the door, stepped out just far enough to block the entrance. What do you want? I asked. Mom's voice trembled. Nothing works in the house, Rachel. The fridge, the stove, even the thermostat's dead. Dad looked miserable. We need your help. I folded my arms. Help? Like how you helped me out of the will? Jason shifted awkwardly. Come on, let's not do this on the porch. No, I said. Let's absolutely do this on the porch. In the daylight, out loud. They stared at me like I'd lost my mind. But for the first time in my life, I hadn't. I'd found it. I stood in my own doorway, heart pounding, as my entire family filed into my living room like it was still their territory. Mom took her usual seat on the edge of the couch, Dad planted himself in my armchair like he paid the mortgage, and Jason hovered awkwardly, flanked by Brittany, who looked like she'd rehearsed every word she was about to say. "Rachel," Mom started, her voice already cracking, "we didn't come here to fight, but things have gotten out of hand." I didn't say a word. She wrung her hands, eyes glossy. The refrigerator stopped working. The microwave. Even the washer and dryer. The technician said they're all tied to that system you canceled. We'd have to replace everything. "That sounds expensive," I said flatly. "It is," Dad grunted. "Thousands of dollars, Rachel, your mother can't even cook a proper dinner." "Maybe she can get takeout," I said, folding my arms. "Or microwave something the old-fashioned way." Jason stepped forward. "Look, I get it. You're angry. But they're suffering." "Oh, you're suffering now?" I scoffed. "That's rich. You want to talk about suffering? Try paying off someone else's $180,000 mortgage while listening to lectures about how your life is incomplete because you're single." Brittany rolled her eyes. "This is exactly what I meant, this bitterness, this revenge act. You're proving their point." "Am I?" I asked, stepping forward. "Because to me, it looks like I'm finally setting boundaries after being used like a personal ATM for 3 years. "Rachel, please," Dad said, exasperated. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." "No," I snapped, pointing toward the door. "You made it big when you rewrote your will and handed everything to Jason like I don't exist. After everything I've done, everything I paid for, you decided I wasn't worth a single cent. But now you want help?" Jason's voice was low, almost pleading. "Rachel, I need the car, it's the only way I can get to work. Can we just find some middle ground?" "You mean like the middle ground where I co-signed your loan because you couldn't qualify on your own? Where I paid your insurance because you couldn't afford the premiums? That middle ground?" He looked down at the floor, silent. Brittany stepped in again, voice tight. "They never asked you to do all that. You chose to." I felt my jaw tighten. "You're right, I did choose to. Because I thought I was helping people who appreciated it. I thought I was part of this family, but it turns out, I was just useful. Until I wasn't." Mom looked up at me, tears in her eyes, hands trembling in her lap. "We didn't mean for it to come out that way. We just wanted to do what's best for the family." "No," I said, walking toward the front door. "You did what was best for Jason, you made that perfectly clear." I opened the door wide. "Rachel," Dad said, standing slowly, "maybe we can revisit the will." I let out a cold laugh. "Now that the bills are back in your name, suddenly I matter again?" Brittany opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "Let me be clear, I'm not negotiating, I'm not fixing anything, I'm not paying another cent for people who look me in the eye and tell me I don't need them but expect me to fund their lives." They all stood there, frozen. "I'm not your daughter when it comes to love or legacy, but you sure treat me like one when it comes to the electric bill." And with that, I stepped aside, motioning to the open doorway. "You can leave now. And please don't come back, not unless you're bringing an apology and back pay." One by one, they shuffled out. No more guilt, no more pretending. Just silence and peace. And for the first time in years, I welcomed it. Danielle was still on the phone, her voice softer now, more hesitant. "I mean, I always knew your parents leaned on you a lot, but I had no idea it was like that." "Of course not," I said. "They were real careful about what they shared, but the minute I stopped being their piggy bank, suddenly I became the selfish daughter who abandoned them." She let out a low whistle. "Wow. That explains a lot. Aunt Karen made it sound like you just snapped out of nowhere." "No," I said, my voice calm now. "What I did wasn't sudden. It was overdue. Years overdue." Danielle was quiet again. "Well, I just wanted to say I get it. And honestly, I respect it. You drew the line." "Yeah," I said, staring at the glass of red wine in my hand. "And I should have drawn it a long time ago." We said goodbye, and I hung up, realizing something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not like before. I was just done. Done carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. Done being resented for my success and drained for my generosity. The gossip train moved fast after that. Within 2 weeks, I was hearing from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. One messaged me on Facebook. "Hey Rachel, I heard what went down. Just wanted to say, that was badass." Another texted. "Honestly? I wish I had the guts to do what you did. My mom guilt trips me into paying her rent and still says I'm ungrateful." Apparently, I'd struck a nerve not just with my family, but with half the extended tree. Meanwhile, the fallout at 428 Maple Street was just beginning. Jason's replacement car, an old 2008 sedan with over 150,000 miles on it, kept stalling. Brittany had to pick up a part-time shift at Target just to make up for what I used to cover. The piano lessons? Gone. Soccer? Done. Summer camp? Out of the question. Mom and Dad had to dip into their dwindling retirement account just to buy a used stove and fridge, basic ones, nothing smart or voice-activated. From what Danielle told me, their beautiful, high-tech kitchen now looked like a patchwork of mismatched appliances from Craigslist. Dad, who hadn't worked in years, picked up a part-time job at the local hardware store, stocking shelves and working the register. He was 64. I'll be honest, there was a part of me that felt bad about that. But then I'd remember, this is the same man who sat at the head of the dinner table and said I didn't need anything because I was too successful. That wasn't just dismissive, it was cruel. Mom was apparently still calling relatives, trying to gather sympathy. But the more people heard the full story, the less they nodded along. Turns out, a lot of folks are fed up with family entitlement. I wasn't the only one dealing with it, I was just the one who finally said, enough. I kept living. I dove into my work and landed another big client, a logistics firm out of Chicago. My boss gave me a bonus that month. I smiled when I saw the deposit hit my checking account, and didn't have to transfer a single cent to anyone else. I bought myself something nice, a deep emerald velvet accent chair I'd had my eye on for months. It looked perfect in my reading nook, right next to the bay window. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't flashy. But it was mine. Paid for with my money. No guilt, no strings, no obligation. Just peace. And God, it felt good. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. News travels fast in my family, faster than wildfire through a dry canyon. Within a few weeks, the fallout from my decision had rippled through every cousin, aunt, and second uncle twice removed. And suddenly, I wasn't just the successful one who doesn't have kids, I was the daughter who cut off her parents. But even the best gossip loses its sting when people learn the full story. Turns out, cutting off the smart home system didn't just turn off the microwave. It paralyzed the entire kitchen. Without the app controls, all the appliances, thousands of dollars worth, were completely useless. My parents ended up ripping half the kitchen apart, only to realize they couldn't afford to finish the renovation. They replaced the fridge with a scratched-up clearance model from the local appliance warehouse. The oven didn't even come with a digital timer. And the once impressive smart home Mom used to show off like a magician at her ladies' brunches? Gone. Dad, who hadn't lifted a finger in years, took a part-time job at a local hardware store to help cover basic expenses. At 64, he was back on his feet 8 hours a day, restocking light bulbs and hauling bags of potting soil for customers half his age. I heard he had to take ibuprofen every night just to sleep through the back pain. Jason and Brittany didn't fare much better. Jason's shiny new Camry was long gone. Repossessed. Now he was stuck driving some beat-up 2008 Honda Civic that coughed every time he started it. Their 4 kids had to give up their extracurriculars, soccer, piano, robotics club. All cancelled. Brittany picked up a part-time gig at Target, running the register during weekend shifts while trying to juggle school drop-offs and grocery runs. Rumors started flying that they were considering moving in with my parents to save money. 4 kids and 2 adults in that cramped 3-bedroom house? Good luck. The best part came from my cousin Melissa, who called me one afternoon, barely able to stop laughing. "Rachel," she said, still giggling, "I just ran into your mom at the Kroger on Main. She was telling Mrs. Thompson how ungrateful you've become." And, I asked, already smirking, She didn't get far. Mrs. Thompson looked her straight in the eye and said, "Karen, if my daughter paid my mortgage for 3 years, I think I'd be pretty damn grateful." I let out a sharp laugh. What did Mom say? Turned red, mumbled something about stress, and practically ran to the produce section. That's when I realized the truth was catching up. People were starting to see through the carefully curated pity parade. I didn't set out to embarrass my parents. That was never the goal. But I also wasn't going to let them rewrite the narrative and cast me as the cold, selfish daughter just because I'd finally said enough. A couple months later, I ran into Jason at the grocery store. He looked rough. Not just tired but worn. Hair too long, polo shirt wrinkled, sneakers fraying at the seams. His cart was full of off-brand cereal, discount diapers, and boxed mac and cheese. The kind of cart you push when every dollar counts. "Hey," he said, like we hadn't gone nuclear at my front door. "Hey, yourself," I replied. We stood there for a beat, surrounded by shelves of canned soup and awkward silence. Finally, he spoke. "The kids ask about you. They don't understand why you don't come around. Maybe you should explain it to them," I said. He nodded slowly, then looked down at his cart. "I know we messed up, Mom and Dad. They didn't handle it right. But cutting us off completely? That's pretty harsh." I stared at him, voice steady. "You want to know what's harsh, Jason? Taking someone's money for years without thanks, without hesitation, and then turning around and telling them they're not even worth a line in the will. That's harsh." He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but I didn't wait. I pushed my cart down the next aisle and didn't look back. 6 months after walking away, I was finally breathing easy. My stress levels were down, my bank account was climbing, and for once, my weekends weren't consumed by emergency calls about broken appliances or forgotten bills. I started dating someone, Eric, a financial consultant I'd met through work. Kind, self-sufficient, emotionally available. I didn't have to pay his rent or fix his credit score. I treated myself to a new car, a gorgeous red Audi convertible, with tan leather seats, and a smooth ride that made every commute feel like freedom. I finally took that vacation to Italy I'd been putting off for years. Florence, Rome. A week on the Amalfi Coast. I stood on a balcony overlooking the sea with a glass of wine in my hand, the sun on my face, and not a single voicemail from Mom waiting in my inbox. I heard through the grapevine that they were still struggling. Dad's paycheck wasn't enough, and they were talking about selling the house, the one I paid off just to stay afloat. Do I feel bad? Sometimes. They're still my parents, after all. But then I remember that dinner. The folder. The looks. The words. And no, I don't feel bad. I feel free. And the only regret I carry is not doing it sooner. My money. My life. My rules. Sometimes, family is just another word for guilt. Rachel's story is a wake-up call for anyone who has spent years sacrificing their time, money, and peace for people who give nothing back but judgment. She played the role of the dutiful daughter, paid the bills, upgraded her parents' life, co-signed her brother's loans only to be erased from their will because she was too successful to need anything. This isn't just unfair, it's emotional exploitation, dressed up as tradition. For many of us in midlife, this hits home. We're expected to support aging parents, help struggling siblings, and keep the family boat afloat, all while being told our accomplishments mean little without a spouse or children. Rachel's decision to walk away wasn't selfish. It was self-respect. Setting boundaries with family doesn't make you cold, it makes you courageous. It says, "I will not be used, overlooked, or guilt-tripped into silence." The lesson? Your worth is not defined by how much you give, or how little you demand. Sometimes, the most radical act of love for yourself is saying no more. Because peace isn't just found in quiet rooms or paid-off homes, it's found in the freedom to live on your own terms. And that's something no inheritance can buy.